Hello, everybody. It's Orson Boon. I hope everybody's extremely well. Before we bounce into this week's podcast, I just want to give a really big shout out to our sponsors this week, an awesome company which provide amazing drop in, flexible workspace all across the city of London. They're called workclubhq.com. And today we're actually going to be recording our podcast in this really cool pub in the middle of Hammersmith. So there is going to be a little bit of sound in the background where people are coming and going, but I kind of think it's actually, it adds a little bit more authenticity to what I'm trying to do. All the podcasts are pretty much completely unscripted. It is just me just having really good conversations, I hope, with really, really interesting people. And that's very much the feel I'm going for. So I hope you enjoy it. If there is any sort of irritating background sound, I do apologise. I don't think there is. We've listened to the podcast a few times. But please always give feedback. I'm always keen to learn. I'm always keen to improve. So without further ado, we'll get started. Okay, so welcome back to the Orson Boon podcast. I'm here with a really good friend of mine, Tida. I'm massively excited about doing this podcast, buddy. I can't tell you. We've been talking now for quite a few years, haven't
Yeah,
we?
we've been speaking now for like 3 years at least now.
Three
Yeah,
years, 3 years.
yeah,
I
yeah.
remember the first time we met, and we spent a good few hours in Bishop's Park in Fulham, just chewing the fat about life.
Yeah,
And
yeah, yeah.
I was still very early on in what I call my journey of waking up, I guess. And now 3 years later, it's great to be able to have a conversation with you. And
As we've always said, man, the universe has a plan. We're all a part of the plan. It doesn't matter what you think you are, who you are. You have a purpose, you're here for a reason. Let's all meet and connect and share.
mm,
So yeah.
absolutely. So let's start, because I mean you've had a really interesting life. You travel the world. You've got a huge experience in plant medicines and helping healing people and all that. And I think a lot of people are, there seems to be a huge amount of energy and thirst around understanding more about plant medicines and the use of plant medicines and psychedelics like ayahuasca and magic mushrooms and DMT. So I think let's just sort of kick off wherever you're comfortable. And
Cool. I mean, when it comes down to psychedelics in today's world, they're being talked about, they're doing research about it, but at the same time, publicly, we need to be very objective about it. At the end, as a species, we can conceptualize our creator, we can conceptualize theories of religion, but in actual fact, we're being kept alive by plants. Literally right now, we can conceptualize about the meaning of life all through the basis that a plant outside this window is producing air for us.
mm,
So there is a symbiotic connection, a synchronistic connection that we have with plants. But when it comes down to what we call plant communication, I think that's something that people would, or that people are doing it right now. That for me is the funny thing about with psychedelics, when we have such human restrictive laws about a human being not able to explore one's own mind and one's own existence, even though plants have literally fed us, clothed us, run our societies to a certain point because we've used money for so long. Plant, right?
mm,
So we have two options. We either chop down a tree, make it into paper, use that money to then buy the fruit of the tree we just killed, or we can use the actual tree, consume it, and see what it has to say. Um, Plant communication in the, for example, cannabis world, it's huge.
mm.
If you look at Facebook and Instagram and social media, there are more pages about cannabis than there is to feed the hungry, than there is for world peace. So there's something happening here that we have to see the bigger picture about, because it's a part of our heritage, I guess. We are on this planet, and whoever put us on this planet gave us many, many clues, you know. And plants are our next going on future, I would say.
And why do you think there has been such a sort of movement to limit our access to plants? Because it seems that like the world governments and people in power seem to have a real issue with allowing us to explore, because at the end of the day, we are only exploring our own minds, our own conscious, and I've always struggled to get my head around why a government would would actually put in huge roadblocks and spend a lot of time, a lot of energy, a lot of money in actually preventing us from utilizing these plants which are all around us. And like you sort of say, with very, very good reason. We've been extracting medicines from plants for thousands of years anyway,
Yeah,
and we
absolutely.
still do now. With the opiates and stuff like that, we use in medicine all the time. But there does seem to be the governments do seem to have a real issue with allowing people to open up and explore their mind. And I was just wondering if you had any sort of insight into why you think that is. What are they scared of? Are they trying to protect us? Or is it more about control and stopping us from potentially, accessing higher information, realizing our full potential?
Well, I'll say it's a two-way point. There's two sides to this. In one way, I'm not surprised. Looking at human nature, we've always had the situation of control and power. Now, if there are plants that would make one question the way they are living in society or being told, that in turn would cause a disruptiveness to the governments, to the order system. Somehow human beings are going against the grain of, the chaos theory at the end. But on the other hand, as a species, I feel that these roadblocks, as I would call them, they're there.
Mm,
It's not that overnight they can disappear.
no.
But I feel it's these situations because the government doesn't work great in most countries. Most people complain about their governments, the system that makes things go round.
Mm,
Even though we don't make things go round ecologically, it's all about economy. So I think it's great that whatever program we're in, and I'm using the word program, okay, there's a situation called government that on a daily basis we are either complaining about it, talking about it, or it's in the news. It's a bunch of humans trying to control another bunch of humans on a bigger picture, let's just say 1 to 99 ratio.
mm,
I think in one manner it's great because it on the larger picture now is when people are disappointed within the government system. Now is the time where people are complaining, arguing, discussing politics. People are taking an opinion on how they want their country to be run. I mean, looking at historically, we don't really have the best reputation as a species on this planet. So, the way we have treated Mother Earth or even other animals. I mean, look at the way we treat each other.
yeah.
So in one way, it's a sad situation, but at the same time, I think it only pushes the human brain to go further. I think it's actually an important aspect of our growth. Naturally, human beings, we're loving beings. We're loving species, and we also like to relax as well. If we didn't have such systems to mentally push us, um, who knows where would we have been by now? But in today's day and age, luckily, the cannabis movement in England is going forward. After many years of regulations just cutting off the conversation, things have come quite forward. I feel this is probably the best time to be on this planet, really, because you have the concept of human beings interacting with other human beings through different mediums, through conversation like a podcast, YouTube, through audio visual medium, through music. And the thing is, it's great. I think it's fantastic. And complaining about what the government uh, has tried to do over the years, it's not going to work any longer. Plants will always win.
Mm,
Um, I think I'm more intrigued about um, politicians actually supporting such movements now. I've met many politicians in a few different countries that do consume psychedelics, and for their view about fixing a system is not just shouting about it. We get angry, we shout about things. We don't understand why cannabis is illegal. We don't understand it. One politician in India told me that, just think about this. With anything with human beings, if you introduce anything new, economy will always change. He goes, there's a reason why with cannabis in particular has not been legalized in many countries, is because it will alter the way human beings want to run their society. It won't be running like how we've been using petrol for so long, right? It can be sold. But now we're having solar, which doesn't make a lot of money for too many people. So it's not being pushed. So it's like for them, it goes, money is a psychological human issue that we have to deal with. And looking at the future, the change has to happen inside. The conversations have to happen inside. When we look at plant medicine, you look at cannabis, you look at mushrooms, you look at ayahuasca, you look at iboga, um, all of which push the human capacity, both mentally and physically and emotionally. Those politicians are still human, and at the end, if you are unable to live with your existence, you will come to the plants. It's not but if, but more like when. So the plants are doing their thing at the end. People can discuss uh, politics, but I think it's going to come to plant politics very soon.
Well, yeah, I think you're starting to see that though, aren't we? In the respect of them discussing using magic mushrooms in sort of treatment-resistant depression, and that conversations, really is actually happening real time now,
Yeah.
which is very very encouraging because, I mean, we see. I was reading a study not so long ago where people who have had years of what they call treatment-resistant depression, where they've obviously tried all the sort of normal regulated pharmaceuticals with no real sort of help or benefit to them, where they're actually now in studies being able to consume actually very small amounts of magic mushrooms and psilocybin.
Yeah.
And it's actually having a profound effect on them very, very quickly, where they're actually, then going potentially weeks, if not months, without the sort of symptoms, sort of taking control of their lives again and restricting them. And I find that just that in itself absolutely fascinating because, we live in a society now where actually an awful lot of people suffer from mental health issues. It's all around us. I've had mental health issues. Everyone I know is
We all have it.
We all have it. And it's obviously, there is something which is creating this discourse in our society. Why are so many people struggling nowadays? Is that down to not being able to live authentically, being sort of stuck in this sort of system, that we find ourselves in, forced to do things that ultimately don't really give us much back spiritually. Getting up early in the morning when it's dark, being stuffed onto a busy commuter train, working, getting a boss who shouts at you, staring at a bright screen all day under bright lights and an air-conditioned kind of box. And then you've got to sort of fight your way back home. And by the time you get home, you're absolutely exhausted. So then you drink a bottle of wine, stick a meal in the microwave, watch a bit of TV, and then crash out to bed before it all starts again.
It's like that never-ending cycle, and hence we were like a consumerist species now, and we love entertainment. We love to get our mind off our own existence. This is a mental illness. I mean, if there are aliens out there looking down upon us, like, so these humans chop down trees, make money out of it, and then they would watch other humans not be themselves for the sake of entertainment.
Like the reality TV.
Right. Okay. I mean, it's interesting.
Yeah.
But when we talk about depression, for example, that's a state of human. I mean, what we'll see in the jungles. That's a state of human evolution. It's emotional evolution. So if you're out there and you feel you're depressed, congratulations, you're evolving as a species. You're realizing that you're either what you're consuming, in a sense, materialistically, when it comes down to relationships, when it comes down to your own being, you looking in the mirror yourself, if something does not feel right or feels lacking, we get depressed. And that's a great thing, because at the end, when we start looking at ayahuasca, you know, no one I've ever met that went in thinking that their life is absolutely awesome and everything is great. A lot of people, and I'll say for myself as well, I had to seek another meaning because I couldn't understand human existence right now, the way we treat each. I mean, as a species, the fact that we have orphaned children, it doesn't make sense.
No.
The fact that we have something called poverty, it doesn't make sense. There's certain things, our behavior has not evolved. And I feel you're living on a planet, there's a tree out there that makes mangoes. There's a tree out there that makes bananas, that makes cherries, all these delicious tasting things. You've not ordered these things. You could not have conceptualized these flavors, these tastes, these colors, and yet you're living in this ecosystem that's literally providing everything to you. It's not about reading a book. It's not about listening to another human being. You want an opinion? Get one from a plant. Get one from the very thing keeping you alive right now. And I feel that's how we have to progress. I think if it was freely available to us, would we respect it a certain way? Maybe not. I mean, if you look right now in the cannabis business, there's a big talk about commercialization of something. There's these are situations that we have to see in the future. Uh, this one politician in India mentioned that he goes, the day we legalize cannabis, he goes, any country, your economy will change for those next 10 years. Things will go up, things are going to go down, but things will change. And he goes, innately, and this individual did ayahuasca. He said the one thing he got to learn was that change is a consistent part of human beings, and that's the one part we fear the most is change. Oh no, if we allow people to be more free thinking, more loving, more kindly people, what would happen to our economy? I don't know. What would happen to our economy?
So it sounds, it's very much sort of driven on fear, isn't it? Still, they're convinced that the system at the moment is good. The rich people get rich. Other people just sort of fall by the wayside. Doesn't really affect anybody. Because you've seen this in especially like California and Colorado, who have legalized. Their economies have changed, and actually the knock-on effect from legalizing cannabis in those states, where we've seen, obviously huge profits being made in tax, and that being put back into the communities and school and healthcare and all of that, which is fantastic. But also you're seeing drops in crime rates, you're seeing drops in domestic violence,
Exactly.
and all of these sorts of things. So that to me is actually all very positive change.
Yeah.
And we see that, the UK government can see that, and yet the British government still seem to be hell bent on going, we're just not going to entertain this.
But then again, right now, I mean, this is a touchy subject, but when we're in a country that wants to leave a communal society of lands and say we don't want to be a part of this communal society of lands anymore, it's a bit, I mean, we're not thinking super straight either.
No.
It's doesn't make that much sense. You can't move your land upwards and shift over there. You can't do that. You're going to still have these neighbors, and that's one thing about plants that I feel is very important now. with politics and plants is that okay, simply put, when someone consumes cannabis, what do they get from it? We use this word high, but why does it reduce crime rate? Why does it reduce domestic violence? Why does it produce a more social society? Why does it produce happy, friendly people? How can a plant change a human being in such a way?
And it does incredibly quickly, doesn't it? I mean,
Very
if
quickly.
you look at most people who use it, say recreationally or medically even, where other things in their other medications don't work. I've seen this plenty of times where people who are suffering from chronic illnesses, and literally a couple of puffs on a plant, and 30 seconds later they're in a completely different space. We see it for people after work. I know loads of people have stressful jobs, and get home from work, they've had a crappy ride on the tube, they're stressed, they're pissed off, and literally within 2 minutes of sitting down and lighting up a joint, the world is perfect again. Everything it's just totally shifted your perception. It's been able to somehow release all that negativity, and you see this a lot. And sometimes I don't even think people are that aware of it, but you're just naturally drawn to something which is going to make you feel better.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's our relationship with tobacco. It's our relationship with the air. It's our relationship with alcohol. I mean, at the end, when someone was telling me, when it comes down to the spiritual end of things, there's always ego traps that you can play with everything. Oh, I don't need psychedelics to be spiritual. Or I don't need plant medicine. So I was like, okay, then stop breathing, because your air is a medicine. Your air is being given to you by a plant.
Yeah, that's a
You
very
know,
good point.
alcohol, it's either made from barley or from potatoes and whatever else it's made from. It's not just made from. We're not buying it from Saturn. It's made from plants at the end. So in its own way, it's plant medicine. We say that alcohol works within the lower chakras of a human being. Like we say, you have fire at the ego that's there. So when you put alcohol on fire, what happens? It just gets bigger. So when people drink, they feel more confident, they feel jollier, they feel more merry. When someone consumes cannabis, they feel positive. They feel very expressive, as we've seen in music and in art for so many years. They become very philosophical. They become very theoretical. And what we say, that's, for example, that opens up the throat chakra, and as reference to Lord Shiva, who is the god of destruction of man's ego, and presented human beings with this particular plant to help them out first. And now with air, right now people are getting sicker because our air is bad. So these are really, really simple things that you can look into as a species, that okay, we have plants that are available to us. At a certain level, you're talking about space travel, you're talking about conquering other planets. So hold your horses, figure your stuff out on this planet. Once, and I think it's like a brother and sister fights that are happening right now. All the neighboring countries, every neighboring country has an issue with each other. North has a problem with the South. See, these things you have to sort out. And personally speaking, I feel plants with politics would actually take things much more further than generic human ego bashing that's been happening all across this time.
I mean, it's a shame. I mean, I find it fascinating that you talk about meeting sort of politicians in other countries who have actually gone down that route of using ayahuasca. I don't think there is a politician in the UK who has. I mean, I don't know. I mean,
Touch wood, there is. I'm hoping there is. It just makes it makes everyone's life easier.
yeah.
If there are people. I mean, again, like a politician. And this is for me. I never understood the way human beings loved their order system. Like, why do you always want one person to be in charge? Uh, You want a president, or you want one person to blame. Okay, come on, guys. It's easy to blame someone. It is less easy to be responsible. When it comes down to a politician, I think you can either see it from a career standpoint, as people say, but personally speaking, human beings, we innately love to help people. We innately love to lead. We are that. We love to lead. And in one sense, everyone's a leader, everyone's an artist, and everyone's a healer. But how we manage our egos within these structures has been our problem. We've just not ego managed.
Mm.
And with all these medicines, if you ask anyone else's opinion, they would always talk about the ego in some manner during that experience. So that uniqueness of the ego and the way it interacts with other egos. You know, either you're going to be defensive, either you're going to be attackive, or being offensive. Um, but in actual fact, for me, every human being is a good, loving human being. If someone says someone's a bad person just didn't get too many hugs in their life. That's, if you don't know love, how can you give love to someone else? How can you even show compassion when you've never been shown it yourself? So it's always a two-way plateau. These politicians are still human.
Mm.
And I would always say that, you know, if you really, really want to be a good leader, understand the planet you're living on. Communicate with the planet you're living on. And oh my gosh, it will take you to beautiful places. And you will lead and you will help people.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a pity that I think a lot of people don't necessarily have the insight to be able to think like that. So it's a very mature mindset to have. Where I discussed this in my last podcast, where I was sort of saying that actually, as a society, we are only really as strong as our weakest, and until we can show compassion and fix our own house, so to speak, then how are we ever going to sort of advance and move forward?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean it's a tricky one. So going back to the ayahuasca, because I know a lot of our listeners are going to be really really interested in this amazing plant medicine. Because I recently last year went off and had a week's long retreat, drinking the plant medicine and experiencing Cambo and having a proper detox. And it was actually the first time in many years that I'd removed alcohol from my system. I'd stopped using cannabis. I'd dramatically cut out meat, dairy products, and all of that. And I went on this retreat, and it was fully raw vegan food and just water. And water, I don't mind drinking, but I do get pretty bored of it. I do recognize the fact that I do like sugar or something sweet in water anyway. And I found the ayahuasca the most incredible experience. I had generally had no idea what to expect. I'd experienced mushrooms before, over the last sort of 20 years of my life. And I was nervous and I was scared. I considered pulling out of the retreat many times before, but I'd financially committed to it, quite a lot of money. So I used that as you can't throw away that money. You're going to have to go for the experience. Yeah. And in that week, it fundamentally just turned my understanding of my reality completely upside down. And I just wanted to sort of discuss with you. And we had a sort of brief conversation about this the other day. And I know a lot of people are actually interested in our point of views when we discuss this, of when we use substances like this, are we just taking a drug, which is then just giving us a hallucinogenic experience? Or are we, as it's been suggested by many people throughout history, through using these drugs, are we able to go through to another dimension, another side, see a different reality, alternative reality. And I just wanted to know what your thoughts and opinions of it, because I know you've had a lot of experience with ayahuasca, and seen a lot of people go through the ayahuasca journey. Because I know there's a lot of people out there who seem very, very interested in it. They read about it, and it's something that I know that they want to do.
Yeah.
But just like me, there's a lot of fear. You know, if I talk to my wife about doing it, she's like, "Yeah, I'd love to. I love the idea," but she said ultimately it terrifies me, and that is probably, she probably represents probably 90% of the people I talk to. They're
Yeah.
just, actually, no, it just terrifies me. I'm just like, well, it's not necessarily a terrifying experience. It's challenging, it's difficult, and
Oh yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
um, so yeah, I just wanted to get your sort of thoughts on.
I mean, the way if when anyone talks about this medicine, I always give a disclaimer that I would always have a biased opinion. From doing a plug, I work for a plant medicine center in Peru. So in one manner, anything I say next is going to be obviously in the best of light. So the first thing I would say is that if you choose to do it, if the plant has called you, I would say firstly, congratulations for being handpicked by the planet to take your human experience forward. And number two would be, it will be the most hardest experience of your living life. That is a clause I give to every single person. That I find it's very important for humanity to go forward with this plant, but it's not easy, and anything is never going to be easy to come, I think. And all right, so when it comes down to this particular plant, I actually spoke about it with a friend of mine last week. It's like, I don't really understand, like, what do you mean? Like, so I explained the whole conceptuality that, we have DMT in our brain, and it's activated the day we're born and the day we physically leave our body, or what we would use the word death, when we die. So he's like, well, why would I want to, go through this experience? I'm like, why would you? It is your choice. But the question is, when you have a phone, why do you update the software of your phone? What does it do to your phone? It's enhancing its features. I would compare things like ayahuasca to a BIOS update to the human brain. It's a computer we don't understand. However, this does upgrade the operating system in which you think. And that is the important part, I feel, with ayahuasca. Because what I've seen over the years is that with anything, you can keep consuming, right? But with ayahuasca, it's a teacher. It's going to teach you many things, all about yourself. The recommendation I always say is, after you go through 1, 2, or 3 ceremonies, off the hand, I would always recommend what I needed. I needed 3 for my breakthrough. So if I'm saying, if you go through 3, take time. Take time to process what you go through. And this is actually the important part, I would say, after experiencing, going through many, many ceremonies, your brain can access so much information in so many, I'm using the word dimensions, so many planes, so many planets. It's all accessible to you. I would personally say it's is the universal data.
Hmm.
Why you're on this planet, that's your deal. You chose to come here for a reason and purpose. So the information that you're going to get is very much tailored to you. However, that initial experience, that fear that people have, it's a natural experience. I personally, that the time I was going to do my own ceremonies, I cancelled 12 times within 48 hours of sitting. It's like, yes, no, yes. And then I started thinking, who is saying yes and who is saying no? This is all a part of the experience. As soon as you want to do this, you already started your pre-ceremony. Either you do it next week or you do it in 10 years. It doesn't make a difference. Time is irrelevant with this kind of work. Now, when it comes to the actual, I would say, benefits, I would say, although the way I can mention it, maybe in an analogy. So imagine a plastic bag, a clear plastic bag, and inside that you have water, and in that you have an aquatic being. So the day you're born, that's you. This clear water-filled plastic bag. So this the plastic bag is your body. The water is conceptual love. And that being inside is you swimming around. So as a kid, you're having these ideas that I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this, and this, and this, this. Then you start going through life. And in this, now you're going to start seeing and hearing and perceiving situations in which you may start crapping in your own bag. Someone says anything mean to you, it's affecting you. Someone hits you, it's affecting you. Someone's abused you, it's affecting you. So over time, you have this shitty bag of water. You know, a bag just muddy, things are floating around. One day you can wake up feeling really positive, the next day you feel like absolute crap. It's like like the daily cycle of baggage. The way in which I can say now is that when you have the bag with the medicine, so imagine the medicine just opens the bottom of the bag. So all of a sudden, the water falls out, the shit falls out, but the first time, you're holding on to the bag for dear life because all you've ever known is your body. You've only known that plastic bag, and now it's empty and you're holding on by that little piece. The second time, maybe it gets a little bit difficult when you have to let go. So as soon as you let go of the bag, you're falling. You're falling in this free space, which I would use the word universal data. Now, within this universal data, you are going to see your water and your crap split, as in duality. See it as yin yang in that sense. Your water, your love, disappears, and you're just left with your crap. And you are now going to see your crap in full 12K HD from every single perspective of every human being in a situation that caused you to go through a traumatic or hard experience. That's the hard part of the medicine because you can't run away from it. No. Whatever you've buried deep inside, it's all coming out. So as soon as you have dealt with all of your stuff, you're going to release it through a purge, and hence you puke. Now you're in the universal data once again, free to explore and free to learn whatever you learn. I don't really believe saying anything here because it will just become too subjective of the experience. But eventually, after your experience is coming to your eventual close, you're still falling, but you're going to land in an infinite ocean of water where you realize that love is everywhere, whatever it is. And that, I would encapsulate, is the most simplest view of this particular plant medicine. Now, the benefits, I have seen cancer, I have seen patients that have physical injuries, arthritis, Alzheimer's. I can't even name half the diseases that I've seen people come in, and you just start seeing that. Hold on. 3 months later or 2 months later, the person that was on stage 3 cancer no longer has cancer. The person that had rheumatism arthritis no longer has arthritis after a few days. This is where my path changed when it came down to me working in the 3D world and then working with plants. Because you start seeing, hold on, the way we perceive illnesses, we need to first see it from the source. And in the jungle, the source of any illness is going to be in the brain.
Mm.
You know, it's going to be in the brain, the heart, or the ego, all of which are linked with chakras in the body. If you open up these glands in your body, you will be able to fix yourself. That's the great thing about ayahuasca, that it's about, it's, even if you go through your experience for 3 days or 5 days, that's 1% of the medicine. Even though that 1% was the most incredible experience of your life, the 99% is the day after and the rest of your life going through. Because there is a bigger play in this, a way bigger play. And I would say no human being is at the forefront of it. The bosses are plants. They're quite good bosses, I feel. And they have a lot to share with human beings. They're giving us cannabis now, teaching people to love a bit more. But with the ayahuasca, it literally is an upgrade to the human mental software.
Mm.
And that is, for me, the key of why I like working with this plant a lot.
I mean, I completely agree. I completely agree because, I mean, you know, like you sort of say, everybody who goes to sort of go through the whole ayahuasca experience, they're not going there because everything in their life's perfect. You're going there because you know there is discourse in your life, and you want to upgrade yourself. You want to let go of negative past, negative history, emotions. For me, it was. I mean, I'd suffered from chronic anxiety. That was. I've always been very lucky, I think, with my mental health. I've never. I say this to my wife all the time. I've never really experienced what I'd call depression. It's not something which has ever taken its grip on me. I mean, I've been upset and I've been depressed where parts of my life have gone completely wrong, you know, and then you lose complete control and you're full of anxiety and worry. But my biggest thing has always been anxiety, and it's always been the one thing that I've always felt has, I'll use the word robbed, stopped me from maybe achieving lots of other things in my life, hitting full potential and all this sort of jazz. And for me, when I got into my sort of 30s, and I was becoming more and more aware of this sort of behaviour and how it was hindering me as a person moving forward, that's what drove me to sort of go in and start experimenting with plant medicine. You know, because with my past history in human behavior and psychology and understanding this sort of stuff, I thought, if I can't look after myself, if I can't fix myself, if I can't let go of whatever's going on, then that says actually a lot about me. And like I sort of said, I was terrified about going into the ayahuasca, and I arrived actually a couple of days late for the retreat because of work commitments. So I went straight from the airport, straight into a Cambo ceremony. I remember just walking into this room where everyone else was like 2 hours into this Cambo ceremony, and all you can see is just people vomiting, diarrhea, crying, just this mad room of emotion of these half naked people just everywhere. And again, I was absolutely terrified, and went through the whole Canberra experience, which I found absolutely fascinating. I mean, it was brutal. I mean, absolutely brutal. I mean, I thought I was going to die at one point because everything just swelled up. My whole throat started to close. I was just like, oh my God, what on earth have I gone and done here? I was just like, this is not good. I mean, so much sweat was coming out of my body. I had like a waterfall coming through my beard, just dripping onto my stomach, just absolutely soaked. And then going into the first ayahuasca ceremony, and again, there's 27 of us in the room. We had the most amazing shaman, Carlos, who was, did an amazing job. And we're sort of drinking the ayahuasca, which, as I've sort of said to you before, was absolutely revolting, the most disgusting thing I've ever drunk in my life. And then after about 45 minutes, beginning to feel very, very nauseous and sort of, trying to breathe through it, doing the breathing exercises, and obviously always being told you just got to surrender. And for me, I didn't know what that meant. I didn't understand what surrender meant. I was wrapping my brains. Well, what does surrender mean, Orson? I was just like, I don't get what this surrender is. Do I like lie on my back and sort of just show my, my vulnerability? I didn't get it. And I started to feel really, really sick. And I was just like, oh my God. I mean, my ego was kicking off going, you're going to be the first person to vomit. Everybody's going to look. I mean, and all this sort of stuff.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And anyway, long story short, I was the first person to vomit and I puked into this bucket. And as soon as I puked into this bucket, I was just thrown down this wormhole where I just found myself in this empty space, this darkness. And then this incredible sort of light show, just went on.
Yeah.
And, you saw different sort of entities. It's actually some fairly nasty looking entities sort of coming at you. And I just remembered then just, to show them love, show them compassion. And as soon as I started doing that, they would back off and it would move away. I can go more into the experience later on. But I mean, what I noticed after that first night was a lot of my fear had disappeared. It had gone. I woke up a different individual. And talking to other people on my retreat, the common thing was, as you sort of say, I feel upgraded. I feel like I've had, all of my old stuff is just sort of is leaving my body. Because I think the shaman sort of said to me, you will just let go of everything which is no longer useful to you. Like you sort of say about, the emotions, the traumas that we all experience in our lives. And it's an interesting concept when you start to look at the world we live in, where there is so much more disease and trauma in people's lives. And I really do feel now, and I really do believe that actually, if you do not deal with any of these negative emotions and you just harbor them down, like I did. So like one of my biggest trauma memories of my childhood was when my parents got divorced. And I remember my father driving us down our drive and I was just chasing after him, in total fear, total chaos, crying, didn't understand it. And for years, that emotion could be triggered. And it's only now after doing the plant medicines that I'm able to actually talk about it without crying.
Yeah.
Whereas before, I'd be straight back as that 4-year-old little boy running down the drive after his dad, not knowing where the hell he's going.
Yeah.
And I tested myself. I instantly started thinking about that memory because I knew it was a trigger memory which would invoke all of this trauma back up. And it used to make me feel, wretched. You'd have a whole physical response to this memory. And it wasn't there. I could think about it rationally because during the trip with Mother Ayahuasca, she had gone through this whole memory and we'd looked at it from multiple different views.
Yeah.
And I looked at it from my father's view, my mother's view, my younger brother's view, my view, and understanding, saw his emotion, saw his pain. I saw my mum's emotion and pain. And it was just able just to sort of let go. And like the entities, and this is another thing which we can discuss because a lot of people are very interested in the entities and it's very difficult to explain what an entity is. I had this one experience where this entity was literally just taking things out of my body and out of my head, and you could feel it when it would go into what you perceive to be your head. You'd feel this sort of almost like a sharp zap or some sort of sensation. And when you ask them what they're doing, they're removing the things that no longer serve you. And for me, I just find it absolutely fascinating that we have potentially got these plants which can potentially give us these incredibly enlightening experiences, which can then actually go on to actually physically heal our bodies.
It's in one way, it's mind-blowing.
That's completely mind-blowing.
It's like we have discussed mental health for so long, and we've as humans, we've studied it in such manners, and yet, oh, hold on, there's a plant that can actually be so informative, while being so silent. It's in one way, it's paradoxical. How can a plant teach me more than another human being, or a book, or something like that? It's quite incredible. Like when it comes down to what we call plant technology. I think now we're getting involved with plant technology. Personally, I would say when I first got into plant medicine, I was severely depressed. I had the best job in the world, I would say. I was a cinematographer. I loved shooting. I loved working in the film industry. But every commercial I did, I was getting more and more, I'll use the word, depressed. because I didn't understand. Like, hold on, I'm following my dream, I'm earning money, I'm spending money. What's the problem here then? Am I not appreciating it? Am I the problem? Oh, I am the problem. And once, and then the usual human story, being being the victim of my own life story, kicks in to a point where I became like super ill. I remember going in knowing that I either need to know what I'm doing on this planet right now, or just take me. Let's just finish the deal. I don't get this planet. I don't understand it.
So you'd really got to that point in your life where actually
I was,
it was
the lowest I've ever been.
yeah.
But that for me is the pinnacle point with any medicine, is that your emotional spectrum, how we have the light spectrum, we have an emotional spectrum, and once we hit the highest and the lowest, you are prepared for the next experience, even though you're not technically prepared, because you have no idea what you're going to go through. And you're never going to be prepared for medicine. I always feel it's going to come to you, it's going to call you. It's your choice to take the calling or wait. There is no rush to do this either. This is one thing. A lot of people also have come in thinking that when they do this, they're going to become more spiritual. Well, the plant will give you exactly what you need. It will teach your ego exactly what it needs to know. It will not give you what you want. It will give you what you need, and that is the most important thing. It will give you a lot if you just be open to yourself. And again, it works. The fact is, if you ask any human right now, if you ask them how many eyes do you have, everyone's going to say 2. But the fact is, you do have a pineal gland, which looks like an eye, and it contains rods and cones. So use your third eye. You have one, use it. And people can, unlock the potential of the third eye by meditation. By going into nature, go hug a tree, you're going to feel great. It's free yourself from your own burdens. You want money, go out and get it. It's not the meaning of life. Money does not mean you're successful. You've enjoyed the 3D world. That world is changing now. There's little and less money going around. We're seeing shops closing down. We're seeing Hallmark stores in this country closing down left, right, and center. We're seeing a huge drastic drop in how people are spending their money. But if you ask anyone, if money was not a concern, what would you do? Why does everyone have a different job in mind to what they're doing now? It's you're self-blocking yourself. And yes, we do live in a world where money is there. But what I personally felt, what I learned from the concept of what I learned from ayahuasca or the mother, because whatever you want, the universe will provide you. Maybe you're not going to get it in the exact way that you asked for, but you will get everything you ask for. As long as you ask from the heart, you're going to get it.
It's interesting. It's a very interesting concept, because I think a lot of people would potentially struggle with that and trying to understand that sort of concept.
Yeah.
And we talk about it quite a lot in regards to sort of manifesting.
Yeah.
How you can manifest things into your life, if it's authentic and it's true and you got pure intentions. And I've experienced that in my life. Real life examples, where I've thought about something and it happens, without any sort of physical interaction or throwing physical energy at it. So it's a fascinating concept, and I think if more people were slightly more conscious of how their thoughts work. And
I mean, I see the concept of signs, right? You think of someone, all of a sudden after a few days, that person messages, or that person messages the same day. Or you think of a song and you can hear it, or you walk outside and you see numbers 222 or 111. The universe is giving every single human being a thousand signs a day. That for me, I can say concretely that everyone is getting signs every day. What those signs are is how open you are to the unknown. There are many times where you can think of something and it's just you just see a sign or you see something that's just related to that moment. Nothing is random. I mean, by nature, yes, I think Mother Nature is probably the most intelligent artist on this planet. What the planet has created when it comes down to species and types of species, it's incredible. Telling me that stuff is random,
no,
you know,
and I mean, it's mind blowing, isn't
yeah,
it, when you start to really look at Mother Nature and how everything works.
it's simple. It's
Everything
actually
works.
very simple, and yet I had to go through such complications just to kind of get a simple answer to a much more mysterious journey. I feel like we need to appreciate the mysteriousness of existence. It's beautiful, it's amazing. Appreciate every single day you have on this planet. However, human beings need to show more compassion to themselves. You can be nice to your next door neighbor, you can be nice to your girlfriend and boyfriend, but if you do not show an equal love to yourself, it's very important.
Hmm.
I,
And so for people who struggle to understand what that means, I mean, we all know what is expected, to sort of show love to one of our, our boyfriends, our girlfriends, husbands and wives, friends, family. But how does someone learn to sort of self love and give yourself that sort of healing? And because I think a lot of people struggle with that. I mean, I know a lot of people, I've spoken to over the years, where they'll have this very negative internal dialogue going on in their head. And this is something that actually I've never sort of suffered from. But, my younger brother will routinely beat himself up in his head and, question everything. My wife will do exactly the same, where she'll self doubt. And, there's no external feedback. There's no one sort of saying this to her. There's no one being nasty. But, in her own mind, she's going through
cycle.
Yeah, this sort of cycle of, self doubt, beating yourself up, saying that you're crap or you're stupid or you're this or you're that. And I think sadly a lot of people fall into those sort of like mental
I would
loops.
say probably everyone goes through this at some point of time. Self-doubt, self-loathing, self-hate. I mean, we do it to extreme points. We damage our own bodies. No one's making us, like the way we consume, the way we put things in our bodies, right? No one's telling us to. It's a choice that we're making, and it's a very logical choice to a certain point, but we have no control. When someone needs sugar, what does sugar actually do? It's the most openly used drug on this planet right now. It really driving society to a certain point. But sugar leads to depression. Sugar can lead to mental disruption. Now, when it comes down to self-love, even though I could not understand self-love before medicine, so anything I'm saying is what I got to learn after doing medicine. The way I've seen self-love is I cannot control all the thoughts that occur in my brain. Maybe I'm not supposed to be controlled of all the thoughts, but I can control two things: what I put in my body and the actions I take based on those thoughts. It's like someone picking up a musical instrument. You're playing a guitar. Some people find it difficult because you will pick it up, maybe play it a few times, then you will stop because it sounded so awful.
Yeah, that's me.
You don't sound like that. But that's the beauty of crapness. There's a beauty in being shit at something, because eventually that shit will turn into gold and you're going to sound amazing. that bracket of learning and applying and doing things. As a species, we know so much. We know what is bad for us, we know what is good for us, but yet we don't apply what we know. And this is a very big bracket point. um so when it comes down to self-love, you can doubt yourself, but that's your humbleness as well, that you can't achieve. But you can, because if you had a thought, that means you can achieve that thought. Just to overcome it is to apply. Applying our knowledge is the way forward. That is self-love. If you have information, share it. Also, for people that are afraid of animals, I know quite a few people that are afraid of animals, that they can't go to dogs or even cats. I personally never understood that myself. But I say, well, the universe, there's a joke in that, because you have this thing called a dog that we have all named, and everywhere around the world, people do mostly use the same word, dog. You spell it backwards, you get God. You get this being that loves you more than you can love yourself, loves you than any other human being can love you, will be loyal to the very end of its life. Explain that. We can't explain this dog, but it's there. So, love for me, in one way, is silence. Hence, we say we do meditation, we just calm the brain a bit. You can calm it down. But if there are thoughts that are coming up, your brain isn't stupid. Your brain isn't so random. It's bringing up thoughts because these are thoughts that one needs to process. Self harm, suicidal thoughts. I was shocked. I was so shocked to find out how many people go through such thoughts. Like, I thought it was, I had a very, very misconception view when I was younger about, when people would take their own lives. And now it comes a point where it's incredible how many people have these thoughts on a daily basis. On a daily basis, like the fact that you just don't want to be here, you don't want to exist, you don't want to have these thoughts. So it's difficult being a human being. There is no manual, right? And the manuals we have, we're still complaining about which manual is right and which creator of that manual is right, and how many creators are there. There is no manual. We have things like dogs and cats and plants, things that give us love, that keep us going, and yet cannot communicate to us. So, in one way, silence is very, very important. I'm not saying that it's easy to silence the brain, but you know what's super easy? Going up to someone and saying, "Can I have a hug?" Because I guarantee you, every single human being loves hugs. I don't think there's another human that doesn't like to be hugged. And if you're out there saying you don't like hugs, don't lie. You all love hugs. Go hug a tree if you can. It feels good. It's good for you, and you should go hug a tree because it gives you free air. No.
That's true. I'm just chuckling at myself. When you sort of hear in the past about tree huggers, there's a derogatory term. It's sort of like hippies, isn't it? Those damn tree huggers.
Yeah.
But yeah, maybe their sort of simpler life, is much more happy and more conducive.
It shows, but it also goes in the fact of entities that you were discussing before, because at the end, a dog is a form of an entity. So is a tree. So is every leaf on that tree to a certain point. So in ceremonies or in visionary plant experiences, when you start seeing entities, it's a beautiful skill when you see something that is giving you the absolute fears. But at that moment, you've shown that you've shown that entity love. You've shown it compassion. You've not judged this entity. It comes closer because it's us. We've created these concepts of good, bad, evil, and all these things. But imagine what most animals think of human beings. If a cow sees a human being, oh man, it's not going to slaughter me and eat me up, is it? You know, it's not going to wear me as a handbag, is it? It's not going to kill half my family and make it into burgers, is it? I'm not ripping on meat eaters. I used to be a meat eater myself. I'm just saying we need to really think logically. We need to put ourselves in positions of other animals. You are not going to like that. So why would anything else like it?
I mean, it's a very, very valid point, and it's something that I think about a lot. I mean, I'm not vegetarian. I'm not vegan. To be honest, I try and avoid labels. Some days I am vegan. Yesterday I was vegan.
I call myself I'm a selectitarian.
Selectitarian. Yeah, I like that. Or maybe a flexitarian for me.
Flexitarian, exactly. Yeah. Just whatever that day has to provide to you, be that.
But it brings up a very good point about how we do treat animals, and I kind of half expected to come back from my ayahuasca retreat and suddenly find myself being vegan.
Yeah,
I have found that I've cut out a lot of food types that I had historically enjoyed, and not out of any sort of real conscious choice. It was just something which just seemed to happen. It was an odd one. But yeah, no, it's fascinating, and I think clearly we've got an awful lot to learn still, and I think as human beings, though, I think, to be fair to us, I think we are still very low on our trajectory of where
we're
we're
still
going.
learning so much.
Yeah.
I mean, we're fine. We've made smartphones and TVs and everything, but we just used the element of fire a lot very well. But we're still learning. We have so much to learn as a species. Like, and what I would use, what is waiting for us in the more galactic or the cosmic community that is waiting for us. That for me is going to be an exciting time, and I do feel that in our lifetime there would be some unification as a species. It's coming there. It's coming there.
So you really do believe that, because I say this a lot. I think I mentioned it last week. Was that I'm a firm believer that until all of us as a society learn to work together and to strip away these labels of, oh well, they believe in this religion, or they're this sexuality, or they're this color, and it's all things which I would argue been used to separate us, to pull us apart. All these labels, well, they're this, they're that, and I think it's tragic, and I mean, I hope you're right, and I believe you are actually, that there'll be something which will pull us together, because we need it, because we're not going to advance.
We have proof of this right now. You can be in America, you can be in Serbia, you can be in India, you can be in Africa, you can be in any country. But if you like cannabis, there's a society for you, right? Right now, cannabis activism, cannabis love is everywhere around the world, and there's that sense of, for me, plant politics. Mother Earth is become a politician in her own ways, but teaching in different manners. Cannabis is coming in right now. Once the doors start opening, there are many plants out there, and I feel that's going to speed track, because on the logical level, we have done way too much damage on this planet. Reversing it will take everyone's effort, not just one person recycling. It means every single person being very purposeful. And that for me is, with plants anyways, is that I feel they are able to help you create your own purpose. Because right now people want a purpose.
Well, it seems to be that classic sort of question, isn't it? What is the meaning of life? It seems to be a question universally asked by pretty much everybody, even if they don't necessarily explore it.
Yeah.
I'd argue most of us have thought, actually, what is the purpose here?
Exactly. What's the point?
Okay, so that takes us on to an interesting line then. So, what do you think is the purpose?
Uh-huh. Well, there are so many reasons I can give, but on the most objective view, the purpose for this human experience within the current algorithm and the current software designed for this current time, it's data. For me, it's information, because, and I say this as let's just say, a human being will have 10,000 thoughts in a day. Some of them are unique, some of them are repeating patterns, but let's look at the unique patterns that we have there. You have theories, philosophies, concepts being ideated every single moment on this planet. Most of these ideas, if implemented, would instantly put us on a better economical path. We are still, for me, I would say my meaning of purpose, existence, I wouldn't even give an opinion on existence, because there's so many reasons I can give why we exist and why we have to be on this planet and why this work is here. What I would say concretely, though, is a funny way I tell most people is that, well, sometimes when I meet someone, I always say, I must have met you on the mothership before we came to Earth. A lot of people here, who is actually human? A lot of people are from different places amongst the vast galaxy that we have. Earth needs a bit of help, so a lot of people have come on this planet. You've come here for a reason. You know that you sometimes feel alien. We discuss each other as if we're not the same species. We are still very individual. So, as an individual spirit, we're all encased in a human armor embodiment. We have the same vehicle, the same logical restrictions. So, the way I would even say now is see it as a spiritual gym. You go to the gym to work out your body, right? You go to school to work out your brain. You're on planet Earth to do both and to add them, to mix it together to be of purpose. And the crazy thing is, you have a human being's design, the design of a human being, literally being a walking, talking plant per se. The design of it, there needs to be a greater purpose. When people believe things are random, like, I mean, someone really put a lot of thought in designing a human being, like a lot of thought
Yeah,
in.
because I mean we're hugely complex.
We're paradoxical. We can give any reason, and we can be happy with our own reason, and that is, for me, one of the points of self-discovery. When you work with plants or psychedelics, I feel you are enhancing your own experience on this planet. There is nothing bad or unethical about consumption of plants that take your experience to other heights. You can go forward, you can say backwards, up or down, but it's enhancing your experience. Think of water. We can't do anything without this element. I mean, not element, well, this water. I mean, I don't know what I would call it, but it's the one thing that we need to survive. It's the one thing that everything on this planet needs to survive. So I feel we're in a game in one way. And most people have discussed this theory about being in a simulation or being in a
Well,
game.
yeah, this is what I was just about to say, and
You
I
know,
quite often find myself sort of referencing it as a game.
yeah. And I think people should see it as a game. You've logged in. You're gonna log out one day, so don't be too fearful of this experience. Everyone's gonna leave, so it's fine.
So when we say that, because I know that's when we talk about logging off,
Yeah.
logging out, and that is obviously death, and I know that death is something that terrifies a lot of people. My wife is terrified of death. My father is scared of death.
Mm.
One thing, I don't think I've ever been scared of death in the the fact of just dying. I've always been concerned about how I would go. I wouldn't want to drown. The idea of drowning terrifies me. But when I was on one of my, I think it was my third night doing ayahuasca, I had a more of an open-eyed experience. I remember I had to go off to the bathroom to purge, and I remember looking at myself in the mirror, and I stood there just in a pair of shorts, and I just watched my body decay, break down, turn to dust, fall apart, and then re-come again. And it was this loop over and over again. And I was just watching all my skin just fall apart, my hair, my beard go grey, turn into an old man, and then all just crumbles to dust, and then it starts all over again. And this experience went on for well over an hour, and hundreds of times. And it doesn't. When I was walking down the corridor, I could see it all happening in the reflective glass panels in the villa we're in, and it was actually a fairly beautiful experience. And that same night, actually, I saw everyone I love die. And over again, this loss of everybody that I love was just being taken away from me. And it was a really emotional experience, but beautiful at the same time. And it sort of showed me. I came back with a new sort of refreshed idea of death. I wanted to ask you, because a lot of people believe that we are born, we're an organic living organism, and then when our heart stops, we die, and that's it. That's game over. But ultimately, what we're sort of suggesting here is that there is no such thing as death in that sort of sense. Is that your spirit, your soul, your energy is continuous, and you are just going to maybe pop back upstairs to another dimension, have a quick sort of reboot, and before you're sort of fired back down to planet Earth
or anywhere else that you have to go or you want to go. It's a choice. I feel everything is a choice. When it comes down to death, I think looking our generations forward, human beings' current perception of death will be the biggest joke that we will look back on. That actually has stopped us from really going forward, because our conceptuality of death is extremely it's just really I don't know, I'm trying to figure out the right word to use, but we have completely misguided ideas about our existence and even the exit of our existence. We have such a very hard rule, it's emotional. If you love someone and someone leaves, you are allowed to cry and mourn. That is a natural human process. But we need to understand that, and this is no way offending anyone's religious purpose or view, but the journey keeps on going. And being on this planet, we have a very little amount of time compared to many other species here. We're here for too long, and we had like a burst, like a spark in one way. It's as if we're like neurons. We clash into each other, we share information, we share data, but at the end, when we leave, and when we all leave, that data that you take back with you is the core thing that you have. It's not about your name on, we're still on this in the ego world where I want to be seen, I want to be remembered, people have to see me, love me, appreciate me. Well, appreciate yourself, love yourself. And if you can't do that, maybe some plants can help you out. A human being's not going to give it to you. You get 1,000 likes a day. Okay, that's great.
But is that where we're still confusing ourselves, and we're almost like chasing significance and that idea?
We're chasing validity.
Yeah.
I'm like, someone please validate my existence.
And why do you? I mean, I've experienced that. Running sort of social media accounts and constantly checking it constantly looking for
Yeah,
likes.
yeah, yeah.
It is certainly quite an addictive.
Oh, it's
It's quite an addictive experience, and I think it's something which is going to cause a lot of damage, especially for the younger generations.
for
Um,
sure.
I mean, I read a report recently where people who take selfies now, these younger children who take selfies, they'll potentially take up to 100 photos, different poses, and then they'll choose one of those 100 photos, which they'll then spend another hour or so editing it and brushing it up to make it look how they want to do it.
Yeah,
They'll put it online, and if they don't get a certain amount of likes in a certain time period which they've set, they will then delete that photo because it hasn't got the required amount of
like
likes.
exactly.
And I think it's a concerning. I think it's extremely
It's like
concerning.
we're maybe a bit harsh what I say next, because I have a particular thing when it comes to selfies. Um, you know, we can't keep. It's not okay to keep rewarding mental illness. You know,
That's a good point.
we can't keep. I mean, in films. I worked in the film industry. I have to say, a lot of people within, who want to make movies, artists, let's just say, they want to be seen, they want to be heard, they want to be respected. They will do anything, not be themselves, tell stories that are not real, just to be seen and heard. And we say, oh, here's an award for making something that was not real. Great, thank you for entertaining me. Here. That is, we can talk about meaning of life, but we really need to look at our behavior as a species. Is it's it's only detrimental to oneself, because you got that again. It's like money. Likes have become the new money in that sense.
Yeah, that's a
I've
good
got
point.
1,000 followers. I'm an influencer. I know so many of my work comrades that are now life coaches or influential speakers. Like, that's great, but human beings innately do that anyways. We're just not given a platform, or we're not either putting ourselves on that platform. So now you have the person that's done it and doing it, and another human being think, oh man, I had the same idea like 5 years back. I should have done it. Now, if you have these things, this is your experience to just do. If you got an idea, keep it in your brain, keep it in that seed. Don't talk about it. Keep it inside. Apply. Do stuff. You're on a planet of doing stuff. If we can take sand and make it into glass, if we can get minerals and make a mobile phone out of it, imagine what you can do now with all this around you. I feel you just like yourself in the morning. Give yourself at least one like in the mirror. You know what? You got two thumbs. Give yourself 2 likes in the mirror. Goddamn. Just put concentration on your purpose. You're here. You will be remembered. If you gave someone a hug on a day they needed a hug, that is going to be remembered more than a short film you've made or a painting you've made. That hug is far more important. You go outside and you see some animals that need food, you give that. For me, is far more important than getting a like or getting. So you need to start putting importance on what is actually valuable in your life. And you're an intelligent species. Human beings are intelligent, too intelligent. Don't overanalyze yourself. Don't overanalyze what you are, because you are made by absolute perfection with a hint of imperfection. you know and that little hint of imperfection is actually what makes you a grounded human being. If you don't want to be grounded, or I don't like give anyone's name out, but I think if you start looking at TV and the news, you're going to see individuals who don't understand what grounded is. If you don't agree on someone, there's a problem there, and it's great. I mean, with what's happening with for example, Donald Trump, whatever opinions I have of him, he's still a human being. Hope he gets a lot of love in his life. However, the fact is, this individual collectively has actually brought the world together, because everyone is hating on this one guy. England, Iran, let's just say India, you can say Japan. Every country is making parodies of Donald Trump. So everyone is hating collectively. Now, if we can get to loving collectively, then boom, we're sorted. But we're getting there. We're getting there. But you see, the universe has to do these things. No one could ever have thought someone like Donald Trump would become president of the United States, apart from The Simpsons. And the universe really has a sense of humor over there.
Yeah, because a lot of people have sort of suggested that the symptoms have predicted quite a lot of things.
Quite a lot of things. And then the universe, that's actually quite good, right? Let's put that into action. But I think if today, if you can try for yourself to practice manifesting what you require, don't look at money as a requirement. University, it's not, and social rules, and it is. So take away the social. This is about you as an individual. If people give that time when they say, what do you really want? What would you really want for yourself? Okay, let's go a bit more further. You want things even faster? Manifest something for yourself that can also benefit humanity. And see how fast the universe will put it in your lap. I think people just need to be more experimental with themselves, both with plants and your own thought process. You can change it.
So let's maybe go into a little bit more detail with that. So a lot of people that I speak to, who do have, depression, anxiety, other sort of mental health issues which holds them back. What are good ways? Because I mean, I know we've discussed microdosing quite a lot together.
Yeah.
And I'm a massive proponent of it. I think it's a really fascinating topic. Because what I found with me, when I first got into microdosing, I was doing it just with LSD. I was taking a tiny dose, like 7 milligrams, and what I found was that it allowed my brain just to be much quieter. There wasn't so much noise. There wasn't so much distraction. It allowed me to focus.
Yeah.
It gave me extra energy and attention, which I thought was fantastic. And I've since then sort of experimented quite a lot with mushrooms and psilocybin. Is microdosing realistically a viable option, or is it more that people should have a larger experience and have a proper reset? Or
I say, each human being is different, and each one has a different genetic story and genetic baggage that comes in. So I would say most definitely microdosing is something that we can apply in our day-to-day lives. However, at the same time, not everything works in microdosing. Like, I know people have been trying to microdose ayahuasca. This kind of plant, that with cannabis, for example, you start growing it indoors, in 2 months, you'll have a plant ready. So it's very easily grown by yourself. With ayahuasca, the vine takes, to be usable, has to be over 40 years, 80 years, and then you've got vines that are 800 years, 1200 years old vines. That takes a long time for it to grow. So something like that needs to be done in those 3 or 4 nights that you need, and then you're done. So each one has its own way of working. If someone is suffering from depression, and if I had to recommend a plant to them, I would personally recommend Wachuma or San Pedro or peyote. This is, from my own research, I would say it's like the heart medicine for the heart chakra. It opens a person's heart out. That is the first step, I would say. People have been using alcohol, which has been working in the lower chakras for a long time. So when you do business, when you do work, imagine if you took away bars, right? And you've got people that go to work on office. Imagine how long they're going to keep up their act for. they need to let their egos go loose. That's why they use the alcohol. If you are suffering from depression, Wachuma is very important. Cannabis is very important if you allow yourself to create within those moments. For me, cannabis is a lover plant. It helps you create, it helps you express. So, allowing um, cannabis to, give that individual an artistic, plateau. So, if someone is depressed, take the medicine, have some paintbrushes around, have a sketch pad, have a notepad. Express yourself at these moments is very important. Um, but microdosing, I've heard people microdosing dehydrated forms of mescaline of different varieties. But again, personally speaking, I always felt there needs to be a very organic ceremonial placement respect, because let's just say San Pedro or Wachuma, you would normally need two plants, two cactuses each one growing to 7 to 13 years. So theoretically, these two cactuses have grown 7 years for you to consume them. There's something very, we need to give that respect to those plants as well. Hence, it's important to create your own ceremony. It's not about following a certain lineage per se. Respect those lineages, understand them, but make a ceremonial aspect out of what you do. A lot of people, for example, when you do sharing circles, people do a lot of sharing when they have cannabis. There's a lot of sharing within the community that happens that I've seen when people have cannabis in the system. People don't. There's only a few egos speaking, and some egos are silent. Give every single individual that chance to express and to say. Um, but definitely, the greatest things that human beings have gone through is the creation of LSD.
Really?
Yeah, I would say it's something that as humans we have discovered,
Yeah.
and we should really respect ourselves. You know what? One of us came up with that. Nature's done everything else, but we got to this point, and it's a phenomenal medicine. Um,
And when you say, because I mean, I think a lot of people would think LSD is more of a sort of like a party sort of substance, maybe. Um, like the sort of the acid years in the US and
yeah, yeah,
the 60s and 70s. And I still know a lot of people who only ever they purely think of LSD as just a recreational drug where I'm just going to throw myself into this alternative sort of space and
yeah.
everything's just going to go a little bit crazy. But you're actually sort of saying that it's you would call it a medicine.
Oh yeah, definitely. I'll use the word medicine because I realized that a medicine is there to help, and if a medicine can teach, it's still a medicine.
Yeah,
I feel
LSD can certainly still teach,
it will
can't it?
teach you. I think if anything can teach you, it's medicinal.
Yeah,
A book, in one manner, is also medicinal, even though it's still a chopped up tree.
yeah,
It's still a plant. Um, but when we start looking at the psychedelics that we have on this planet, we've not even touched theoretical or philosophical points of why we have these, or why would anyone put these here. For example, ayahuasca is a vine, and it works with your pineal gland, your third eye. Cannabis is a weed, and it works with your other chakra, your throat chakra. Um, Wachuma is a cactus that works with your heart chakra. So imagine, like a cactus is like this plant that grows in a place with no water, hence no love. But somehow it teaches you a lot about love, even probably more than ayahuasca. Then you start having like alcohol, the other plant medicine, teaches you confidence. But I feel with alcohol, if people started party with it, I don't think anything wrong with partying. Party out. That's what human beings love doing. If we've got a free time, we'll rather be out celebrating something for some reason. But with alcohol, there's a fine line there because that is a very pure, very alcohol is ether, a very pure element. So a very pure element needs to have a certain amount of control. But now the alcohol, when you have confidence, what is control? How do I control myself? Now that comes to the greatest medicine of all, willpower. And that will is coming from air. That you're breathing in air. You're consistently breathing it in. That's medicine. If you breathe in air in particular manners, you can unlock your pineal gland. If you breathe in air in certain manners, you can actually expand your lung capacity. We just don't know how to use our lungs properly still. I mean, we still don't know how to use our organs. We're still learning new things. But oh, we can do this. Oh, we can do that. And for me right now, I'm researching a lot more on frogs. You know, frogs are great. Everyone loves toads and frogs. But there are like 18 medicinal toads out there. And they go beyond veganism because, for example, Cambo will, it acts like a venom, it acts like a poison, but this poison somehow tells all your glands to start producing an increased amount of white blood cells and T cells. And it then makes your organs leaky, which then allows any dirt to be removed. And then you're going to purge all this out. Now, why would a toad make this? What's up with that? You know, there's another. You got the bull, so the bullfrog in Mexico. It contains a form of DMT that has a 5 molecular structure on its back that you just have to squeeze out. And I still have my deliberations of how we're using it, but there is a path being placed out for us where we no longer have to destroy a plant. This living entity, I would call it, is giving you're given a medicine for your immune system and for your pineal gland.
Yeah, I mean the Cambo I found just fascinating what it does to your body and what left my body as well. You know, during it, I was completely blown away because it was a brutal experience. You know, it made me feel so sick, and the stuff I was vomiting up, the different colors, this different textures, stuff that I'd never ever seen come out of my body
Yeah.
was, and you know, afterwards we were all able to look in each other's buckets and you know all poke it with a stick and just to see what all this poison and toxin was
Exactly.
which had left your body.
I mean,
And afterwards I felt, I mean, an absolute $1,000,000. I mean, I felt amazing. You know, even my
it's
wife said, she said, you look physically different.
yeah. I mean, I would definitely say Cambo is something that, if proper research was allowed, we would definitely see one of the biggest instruments given by nature on a near infinite level. If we technically see that we're not chopping down anything and waiting for it to grow, these toads produce Cambo within a span of 6-7 hours once extracted. I'm not saying we should make frog farms as human beings are used to doing, but on the fact that by nature, we have now this toad that is able to help many people within a span of half an hour. With half an hour, you are going to clean out your organs than doing a juice detox for a year. It's quite phenomenal.
Yeah, I
You
mean,
know,
that's a really powerful statement, isn't it?
there's something there that's beyond us. You know, but you are the center of your own universe. This is your human experience. In your life, I'm an NPC. I'm a non-playable character, but we can interact and have a dialogue. Learn from NPCs. Speak to people. You'll be surprised how much we have in common. You know, that's I'm seeing more now. People are discussing depression more openly, where it is taboo for most places, because most places you have to act as if my life is awesome, everything is great. I got a fast car, I got a nice apartment, I'm making millions a year. I've seen way too many charades that occur within this 3D world, and it's a shame because I'm like, well, I mean, you can take off your mask, brother. You don't have to wear your mask over here. And I feel when it comes to plant medicines, it's allowing people to remove their mask and be okay with taking the mask off. It's good to take the mask off. I think society-wise, we will just improve so much. But I mean, we're still not going to really evolve until we realize that money does not need to be in existence anymore. That is keeping control, because if tomorrow you shut down all the banks and there's no money, human beings can act quite irrational at times of fear.
Yeah.
You know, so I definitely feel like this the brilliance of design. I'm using that word brilliance of design because something that is innate to us, like money, if cut off at the right moment in our evolutionary state, will allow us to progress beautifully. But if we never even created money, what kind of world do we live in right now?
Yeah, I mean that's a very interesting question. I mean, do you think we're going to reach that point? You know, because it's a lot of people sort of say money is the root of all evil.
Yeah,
You know, there's a lot more kickback from capitalism nowadays. A lot more people seem to take big issue with big corporations
yeah,
and big business, big money, and all that. And it's interesting because sometimes you sort of almost struggle to see a world where that isn't in place, because I mean, you know, like living in a place like London where, you know, it's incredibly expensive just to live here. You need to be working very hard. You do
yeah,
need to be making money. You know, everything costs. You know, and actually costs an awful lot of money. And you know, a lot of people struggle, and you know, we constantly see these big corporations,
mm,
you know, who take the piss. They seem just to take, and give very little back. And our governments almost seem to encourage that. You know, we've got huge corporations in the UK who make billions and billions of pounds, and actually sort of get away with not paying any tax
yeah,
at all, not giving
exactly.
anything back. And that that concerns me, that we're still living in a world where we are allowing these sort of organizations
Yeah,
to
but it's
totally run
it's
amok and
it's
get
gonna
away with
it's
it.
gonna fall on its face eventually. Unfortunately, by design. Let's look at AI, right? Everything is being controlled by an individual company, and let's look at the big companies. Let's look at social media. Let's look at Facebook. Let's look at Instagram. Let's look at Amazon now. Shopping. What are they really doing? They're just giving you a platform. On that platform, you're giving them everything. You're either going to buy a product that they've not made. Someone else has made that product. They're just given a platform. The trade is what occurring. It's going to come to a point where we won't even need governments. Have an AI system running, you know, have an AI government. Anyway, if you're making bad decisions, an AI system can make. I mean, heck, I'm surprised no one's made aware. Okay, you have a phone app. Each government is an online system. You vote yes to the law, no to the law. There's no left wing, there's no right wing. I mean, that's the funny thing about politics right now is I never understood the left wing and right wing. I'm like, okay, I get your views, but I mean, theoretically, don't you need to have like a body? Don't you need a center wing where, and who's, I mean, human beings or the citizens are the center wing, in which you need to have two wings to fly, right? You can't just fly with your left wing all the time. We're going to go another different side.
Hmm.
It's coming to a point where all around the world, people are demanding more from their governments. People should demand more from their governments. And I think people in government need to be paid less than what they're being paid right now. If your country has an average wage of £20,000, you should not be getting paid more than that. You should only be getting paid more if you're increasing everyone else's money. It's I know that sounds like a communist way of looking at things, but it's something that we have to look at, that you have to add in, be both democratic, be both conservative, be a bit liberal, be a bit have a hint of communism in there, have a bit of socialism in there. Put it all up together because we need a selection of laws and regulations. And this is like, still having a singular human leading party. It's gonna all. That's why I don't those things I don't worry about too much because you can see it's no longer working. People are angry. People are very angry now. Like, get angry. Get angry at people that you're paying. You're paying money to these people to run your country. If they're not doing a good job, stop paying them. What's going to happen?
But this is this sort of
I guess it's too hypothetical of something that can be like logically achieved. But as individuals, we need to start thinking openly. We are, you know, I think that'd be great to have more people expressing, have more podcasts, have listen, because I feel when you have like we are innately judgmental. You know, you watch a video online, you have an opinion about someone without even knowing that person. We are getting to a point where understanding that we're all individual, we all are artists, we are unique in our own way, but that collective bringing in, I feel that's happening. You know, and I'm saying that's happening in conjunction with plants. We're not doing it because we think it's right. If we've always thought it's right. The situation has been like this for many years, even before we were even born. The same conversations were taking place, but now there's another picture in. There are plants that have come in, and I definitely feel that plants, collaboration of plants and humans, will most definitely be a much more brighter future.
no. I mean, I agree with you. I mean, I think all the people I know, who've experimented and experienced, these sort of powerful plant medicines. They have fundamentally changed. I mean,
Yeah,
I've got a friend of mine who was city trader, making a lot of money every single year. He'd gone through life ticking all those boxes. Nice wife, nice car, nice house, great job, all the respect.
yeah,
And he got to sort of 40 years old, and he was just like, I've ticked all these boxes. And once I ticked all these boxes, I thought I was going to have everything that I wanted. I was going to be enlightened. I was going to have happiness and all this sort of jazz. And he said to me, he was completely empty, and
hmm.
he gave it all up, and gave up his marriage, gave up his job, and now just lives a very, very humble little life, fixing boats.
Yeah,
I had another friend of mine, who's older, who's in his 50s, again, very, very successful, living a sort of hard and fast, life. And then he sort of said to me, he woke up, stood in front of the mirror, looked at himself, and he was just like, I'm fat, I'm miserable, and I'm dying. And he took himself off to the jungle for a number of months.
yeah,
And he's come back a completely changed man. Lost a huge amount of weight, shifted all that negative emotion from his past and his childhood, and now just wants to create and to give back to society, and has walked away from his old sort of
yeah,
celebrity sort of driven sort of world that he'd sort of created for himself.
yeah, yeah.
So we are seeing this vast shift,
Shift, yeah,
in people who are sort of almost sort of waking up, to the world that we find ourselves in,
yeah,
and are actively trying to sort of to change, because they know. And whenever I talk about plant medicines and psychedelics, it actually invokes a huge amount of interest,
yeah,
and an interest that you maybe wouldn't have seen, you know 10 years ago,
yeah,
5 years ago, maybe. um, and I find it fascinating, and I really do hope more and more people will sort of start using them, and free themselves from the sort of the mental chains and blocks that society have put on us, and ourselves have,
yeah,
we
absolutely.
put on ourselves.
Yeah,
um, what I wanted to talk to you about, you mentioned it earlier, because this is a very sort of powerful sort of psychedelic, was ibogaine,
yes,
iboga. I've never actually experienced it, but apparently it's got fantastic properties for addiction. And am I right in thinking that I think there's even a prison down in Mexico that has started using iboga for their inmates? The ones who are heavily addicted to opiates and
yeah.
stuff.
I heard similar stories about ibogaine and with ayahuasca in certain prisons in South America. And yes, I mean, I've had a very brief encounter with ibogaine. I've not gone through a proper ceremonial process, which I would love to do. But what I would definitely say from my experience that I would need to complete as well. That's also important. That once you do these things, it's very important to complete your journey. Um, for me, my personal journey when I took the medicine, it was a dry powder. Um, do you know when you purge,
Mm.
there's that contraction you get in your stomach where everything is pushed upwards.
Yeah.
And it was as if when I was purging, nothing came out. But as soon as my stomach expanded inside, I went inside. So when I was inside, I met three distinctive personalities. One personality, maybe I can even say, was a relative, a genetic relative, because at the end, our DNAs do store information about our genetic lineage. And I was sitting around this fire, very dark, like extremely dark room, extremely cold, sitting around this fire, and I can visually see these individuals, but there was no form. There was a presence, but there was no form. And within about 20 to 30 minutes, I started purging. As soon as I purged, I came out from that space. And after the purge was done, I heard these voices in my stomach saying, I'm glad that you met us, but there's more work that we have to finish off. And that's when I realized, okay, that there is always work within a human being. There's never going to be a time where you're going to be perfect because we are always going to try to reach the height of perfection. Iboga is considered to be a father spirit. So ayahuasca holds the mother spirit. Cannabis can hold a lover spirit. It can be both masculine and feminine. San Pedro Peyote Wachuma drifts between being a great aunt or a great grandmother. Tobacco is seen as a great grandfather. So Iboga is seen as the father. And it's amazing how with Aya being the mother, she opens up the mind. Whereas the father works very deep at the other end. So you have that mind, and then you have the ego, the yin yang, if anything. And I would definitely say Iboga is something that I want to research in deeply, particularly for masculine development. That's one thing that we have to realize, that we can't just stick with alcohol. You can't just be on that same. If you're working with plants, then these plants are there for you. I think it should be available. Like these plants shouldn't even be. It should be available after a certain age. It should be available to you. You know, it's like money. It should be. It's. I mean, it's funny, right? Where if someone wants to study to become a neurosurgeon or a doctor, they have to pay X amount and probably have a debt of 85 to £100,000 maybe, and they got to pay that off. I mean, does it make more sense to pay people to study? You're making the money up anyway. Your money is paper based on the fact that you have a certain amount of gold. And you're not even using gold properly. I mean, for God's sake, gold was based in the ground. If people really knew what gold can do to the earth, and there's many things that many species out there are laughing at us, thinking, oh my, like they're face palming the human species, that they're cutting the tree down to make what? They're digging the gold out to do what? They're it. Yeah, guys, maybe they're not ready yet to leave the planet.
Yeah, so you think we've probably got entities,
Yeah, I would say with most human beings, with all human beings, we have spiritual investors.
Well, this is something I wanted to bring up because we touched on this on our conversation we had a few weeks ago, and it's something that I hadn't really sort of thought about, and I've spoken about it to quite a few people since, because when I use ayahuasca or DMT, there's this reoccurring theme where I meet these three characters, and I was talking about it to you the other day,
I remember that.
and I recently had another encounter with them because I hadn't sort of seen them for a while, and it was almost like my relationship had changed with them since. I was sort of thinking, as I was sort of looking at them, going, "Oh, gosh, are you like my guardian angels?" Because they're constantly there. They're constantly trying to show me things.
Yeah.
Like I sort of said, they're always trying to show me information, and it looks like almost like branding, logos, and ideas and stuff. And it's actually quite difficult to take in because you almost have to sort of say to them, slow down, slow down. You're showing me stuff so fast, I can't even take it in. And I just thought it was a really interesting concept to sort of think that actually, we all have, spiritual investors or guardians.
I mean, we do, and coming on Earth is also a great lottery. If you've come here and you were chosen to come here, and you all have, pat yourself on the back, because you must have been, the big dog on whatever planet you're from, or whatever galaxy you're from, or whatever system you're from. You were big in your place to come over here. And the spiritual investors, they come from all different forms and sizes. Some can maybe be, how you say, be scary. Some people have said that, oh, these voices keep telling me to, do harm to myself. I'm like, okay, choose not to listen. Take your power back. See, you have to take some control because this spirit has come to you for something. And it's with the concept of good and evil. You're going to have angelic investors. I'm using conceptual ideas. You have angelic investors, and you have other investors that may not be of the same realms of light and love. They may be on another realm. Now, what can they really get from you? That's the key. What can they gain from me? And when someone smokes tobacco, why do we use smoke, meaning tobacco smoke, in a ceremonial place? Because as the great grandfather, as a human, I can harness the power of fire, burn this, use my pranic energy within my lungs, and through my life energy, I am blowing out smoke. That smoke, spirits around can absorb and take in. So you're keeping them dormant, you're keeping them quiet, you're keeping them occupied, you're keeping them calm. Why do we burn Palo Santo? Why do we burn sage? These things have tremendous power. Like smudging your house with tobacco is very important. Don't smudge your lungs too much. Smudge your house.
But when we talk about smudging our house with tobacco, it's not about sitting there and consuming a packet of 20 Marlboros,
exactly,
is it?
Exactly. No, it's not. I mean, no one in the jungle even takes in the tobacco in their lungs. It's in the mouth, and again, your palate. You have the entry point at the top of your mouth. If you put your
I'm feeling now
that little gap there,
yeah,
you can actually pressurize tobacco and push it up, because tobacco actually needs to work with your palate here. If someone has done a ceremony or worked with any plant medicine, you will know the rapé that is given. Now, that's a mix of tobacco and a few other spices. Why would I blow it in your nose if it has no reference? When you blow it, your palate on top has incredible sensors. So when it's blown into your nose, it's like ringing the doorbell on your pineal gland. Hello, is anyone home? It helps give you a lot of clarity at that point.
Oh, I mean, absolutely. I mean, I experienced that, like I was said earlier on in the conversation, that I had this stuff, and it was quite a long pipe, probably like 30 centimeters long.
Yeah.
The powdered stuff down one end, and you put it up, you rest it underneath your nose, and then it's fired up there. And like I sort of said, it was like having this hot bullet almost go straight for your head. You felt it go straight for your head, and then you felt almost like every single cell in your body just start charging up.
Yeah.
It's almost slightly similar to the Cambo warm up.
Yeah, it is.
That energy where you can feel the sort of toxin sort of almost scanning your body.
Yeah.
It's
down, actually preparing yourself. So it's like you're using the tobacco to prepare your journey. Because when you come in, you have a lot of fear. So when you do the rapé, it actually reduces that fear, and then you know, and now you're ready because you've been fearful all this time till this point. And grandfather tobacco, is in one way a silent teacher. You know, it's harsh if you don't consistently learn properly, but it lets you get to your point.
Mm.
It really prepares you to get to this point. And it's if if people say that people have really traumatic relationships with their families, right? People have traumatic relationships with their mothers and their fathers, and we're living in a world where people just have mommy and daddy issues. It's okay. There's another mother. There's another father. You have uncles and aunts. You have cousins and relatives, all within the plant kingdom, waiting for you to meet them.
Mm.
It is a family tree, literally, and these things are available to people. But as human beings are, anything that can is not profitable is something that is never uh, on the market available.
So, with that, do you think that's why we don't see it so mainstream now, because there isn't profit behind it, or is there more sort of hidden agenda behind preventing us from? Because I mean, all these substances we're talking about,
Yeah,
they're all highly illegal in pretty much every single country apart from
yeah,
I mean, I think ayahuasca is legal in Peru, isn't it?
yeah. I mean, there's no legal status for ayahuasca. It's a cultural. It's based on the culture. It's based on the heritage. That also brings a lot of issues for medicinal centers because you're not your center is not seen as a form of business. So there's a lot of the indigenous land has been taken away from a lot of tribes because these lands contain a lot of ayahuasca. You know, with anything, there's a flip side to all. With cannabis, we can see the flip side to the cannabis movements in most countries. Human egos have really messed up a lot of the movements going forward. But really, at the end, it's that love for the plant that will always, be the prominent winner in all these situations. Like for me with ayahuasca, there's a huge problem with cultivation of ayahuasca. People are chopping down vines without properly knowing how to chop down the vine. And if you know it, so ayahuasca is a vine.
Mm.
So think of it like a power cable, and each tower is a tree. So the vine will go up a tree, then it'll go down, go on the ground and find another tree, and will climb up that. So what you normally would do is that you can either take off one branch, plug it in the ground, and chop the other one around the tree. So there's always two vines connecting in. What people I've seen doing, and I think I'll use the word gringos, is that people are going and chopping the vine from neck level in the tree. So they're only harvesting what's on in the ground, which you're not supposed to harvest. You're supposed to harvest what's on the tree. And when you've chopped the vine off, that vine decomposes really quickly, and the vine is very powerful. I've seen trees collapse and fall because of the decaying nature of the ayahuasca's weight is too much, or just that energy is just taken down from that tree. So these are certain things that, okay, you like something, let's educate yourself. The indigenous have been keeping this alive for so long. There are certain things they don't know, but you do. There's certain advantages of being in what we call the modern world, the connected world. Use your ability and help that world. So we have a project in India, um, which is Soma, where we are getting different indigenous medicines that take years to cultivate, and allowing them to have safe havens in different locations in India to allow them to grow and to flourish in case there's a time where there's no medicines left.
I mean, is that a potential risk? Do you think?
Yes and no. I would say, like with cultivating different plants and seeds, you're most definitely going to be affecting the ecosystem there. But if we don't start to understand that first, we're never going to know. As far as I know, there is ayahuasca. There's different forms of ayahuasca growing in India right now that have not been discovered yet. But I can either go around hunting for this vine in such a large country, or at least start somewhere and see, okay, does it grow here? Okay, it is growing here. How is it affecting the environment? Choose not doing too much damage at all. It's not doing any damage. So we've seen in Kerala, for example, we have medicine growing there for the past 5.5 years. I've not seen the conditions since the floods that have just come through to Kerala, unfortunately. Um, I'm guessing the vines will be doing their journeys in whatever way. They were doing pretty well before the situation occurred. So from my side, it's always been, if you like something, help cultivate it. If everyone kept a greenhouse, and in that greenhouse, for their family, they grew a watuma cactus and they grew an aya vine for themselves. This is your heritage. These are investments these are the actual investments that you need to do for a family. That you could be a millionaire right now, but if your kids are spoiled and messed up, then at least you've got a plant investment that will, fix that issue.
Yeah, help fix it.
Help fix it.
No, it's fascinating, and I think very very important, and I hope that there is. I hope there's more people out there who are going to sort of help preserve these sort of plant medicines. There's a part of me which kind of fears that certain governments would want to try and destroy.
Yeah.
Because
they've tried, though, haven't they? They've tried for so long.
Yeah, they have. They have, and there's obviously reasons behind that. I personally generally believe they just don't want us to access those higher levels of intelligence.
If you did, then they would no longer have control over you. And they want control. Unfortunately, we try to control so many things as a human. How much do you really try to control your life and your thoughts and everything around you? They're doing the same thing. When there's too much money, then you want power, and with power you can have control. But if we start seeing the news these days, and when people are seeing propaganda on the news, people are calling it out.
Yeah.
Right? There was one point in time you'll never question what you heard or what you hear from your government. But now people are questioning their authority. People are questioning the government. And that, for me, is human evolutionary step of going forward.
And that's true. I mean, that's a good point. I mean, we've really seen quite a large sort of shift in that. I remember, my grandparents' generation, they would believe everything which was in the newspaper. They'd believe everything which was on the news, on the television.
Yeah.
Whereas now, I think we're beginning to realise that actually, newspapers are just opinion pieces, really. And we've got somebody out there who's got an agenda and wants to tell a story and to stir people up. And I think like you sort of said, we're starting to see more and more people just go, this is BS. I mean, I don't watch the news, and I haven't for years. I don't read newspapers. I'm a firm believer that actually, if something's really important happening, I'll hear about it anyway.
Yeah.
Because you just think, the amount of BS. I mean, it just on a most ridiculous level. I mean, the stuff we sort of hear about, which you can clearly see is fake news.
Yeah.
And it's this constant thing, and I see it all the time where people post things on social media. I'm like, that's not even real. That didn't happen.
Yeah.
Oh, yes, it did. I mean, I found it on social media.
Put some effort into it. Put some effort. If you're gonna lie to me, at least respect my intelligence and make an effort in the lie you're telling me. I think the governments are getting tired. To be honest, they're
getting tired of their own bullshit.
They're getting tired because they're like, how do we? I mean, they're unable to convince us of their BS anymore, and people are calling people out basically. I mean, we would have gone forward once we stopped having a singular ruling party system. I just don't. I can't get my head around it. I'm like, hold on a second. There's like a 48% to like a 52% vote, but that party is gonna rule. What are you talking about? I
Uh,
think live where you want to live. You vote for a party. That rule only affects you. Then do your thing. I mean, why pick rules for yourself? Just live, be happy. But it's a
well,
game at the end. It's the
well,
game.
yeah, it's the game, and like we
It's the
sort of
game.
said, it's the people want to, they want to be able to control.
And it's rising up. I find with this game that we all are playing is rise up. You know, there's important things that you need to say and do. Time is irrelevant. You know, say I love you more to people. It's gonna change the way you manifest in your life. It's a simple fear. The most tiniest fears have put our species back,
Yeah,
and it's now time to realize that you're gonna die anyways. So we have nothing to fear. You know.
yeah. No, it's a very good point. It's a very good point. So going back quickly onto, I know people are interested in sort of discussing maybe in a little bit more depth the idea of how we communicate with these extraterrestrial forces
Ah,
that we
yes, yes, yes.
we encounter, and it's a big question, and I think it's an important question because we still have to sort of wonder, you know, are we? Someone said to me the other day when I was talking about DMT, they're just like, look, you're just smoking this substance which is really really strong, and your brain is just creating this hallucination, and it left me wondering, and I sort of was busy sort of thinking to myself, first of all, I don't think my brain is powerful enough to create the experiences that I've experienced, and just the sheer depth of the experiences, and you meet these entities, these creatures who seem to actually know everything about you. Your biggest fears, your biggest loves, and a lot of the time, they're very keen to sort of offer you advice and to try and, help you on your way.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to sort of have a little conversation about that, just to see, who have you met?
Oh, okay. Yeah.
What's been maybe one of your most profound experiences?
I would say there was one particular entity that ranged from I would say the imagery background was a very ancient but a very technologically advanced Egyptian setting. I can't even say it was in Egypt because I again subjectively saying this entity came from a collective of planets that is a new resting place for certain species, and its communication started coming through when it was pushing information, like texts were coming my way, and even visionary wise, seeing shapes, patterns, and symbols, and understanding the coding, the way humanity is coded, and this individual was showing me different codes, and it was pushing me to start creating something that I mean, as a filmmaker, I did, but I wasn't creating a film to help anyone. I was just creating a film to be seen and heard. This would ask me to create certain things. This is where I started getting into coding and started learning software design for the past 3 years. And within the process, different entities have come in to give different informations. I find it difficult to discuss them in detail purely because a lot of these entities say, we work with you, but you'd never have to share what we're discussing exactly. And if you do, we're off the contract. So I'm like, okay, there's however, when it comes down to plant medicine and the entities that communicate through you, let's say, for example, through ayahuasca or through mushrooms per se, or even when people smoke DMT, a lot of times when you smoke DMT, you may arrive at a place that you're not supposed to arrive just yet because you're not in control, let's just say, of your conscious mothership. So you just arrive somewhere and maybe you're not meant to be there just yet. I've had people that were told by entities to never come back here again, or was told, we will see you in X amount of years. Do not come here again. And then they'll have this fear against doing something. And that's fine. That's just how that individual has to learn. But I've said a lot of the entities that I got to meet through my ceremonies, a lot of them had cultural backgrounds of civilizations on this planet.
So yeah, I've had the same.
They're from different time zones and different places, from different mythological backgrounds, I would say. But they were all from this plane. There was, however, two particular entities that I realized that were always hovering over my back, that weren't the most friendliest. And even in ceremonies, they would sometimes just come sit in front of me as if it was like a shadow. So anything in front of me I couldn't see. I'm like, look, either I am creating this block or someone's blocking me. How is this helping me? And how is it helping you? And this entity spoke out that it has powers, but it had abused its powers. And hence it needs help to get in. Now, I'm not going to describe exactly what get in is because there's dimensional spaces that one can travel through. A lot of entities are not allowed to travel beyond that point if they have not fixed their errors or fixed their ways, per se. So, a lot of these entities will attach themselves to really sensitive but hugely, hugely powerful individuals because they can feed off the human's energy. They're feeding off any love that human being has is being fed into this individual. Now, because as a human you are in this dimensional space, you need to take control of this dimensional space. So a lot of times when you know that, hold on, I'm not a bad person, I should not be having these thoughts, 99% of the time they're not your thoughts.
So that's a really interesting.
They're not your thoughts.
Yeah.
It's like an environment. If you're in a city, for example, people feel stressed out in a city, but when you get to a park, it's calming. At the end, the DMT in our brain is what I've seen. It's like a Wi-Fi point. If there's crap coming from that side and bad stuff coming there, obviously your dreams are gonna only reflect that. So to help yourself with these entities, you can't tell them to fuck off. Mind my language. I'm sorry. I apologize.
No, it's fine. No
you,
problem.
You can't tell them to just go. See it as a duty, as a human being, that you're made to love, you are made to heal, and you're made to learn. Listen to the entity. Don't listen and tell it do what it's telling you to do first. Listen to it, analyze it. Okay, how does this benefit me? It doesn't benefit me. Okay, so it's going to benefit the entity. Tell the entity, you know what? I'm not going to do this to myself. However, I love you and earn a bit of sage. Here's some sage for yourself. Enjoy this. It's okay. I know you're learning, Mr. Entity, but on this planet, we work on love. And, right now, you don't have any. So you need mine. So I know I am awesome. And you've come to me for a reason. So I've also, anyone that has come with issues, I'm now specifically going to say cancer. When anyone has come up with cancer, and this is because we actually do use ayahuasca for certain cancer patients, it's so prominent. And I'm going to be really open about this. When my father passed away of cancer, I had a really, really, really 3D thought of cancer. really an unfriendly thought about cancer. However, now, and you know what, that thought, I'll share that thought. I was actually trying not to share that thought, but I will share that thought now. It's as if, well, if you can't hack it, just go, right? You can't deal with yourself. You gotta go. You're not supposed to be here, so you're part of the junk. That's very harsh for me to say that. However, going through a particular condition myself and working with the plants, I commend every single human being that has gone through this illness. And I'll tell you straight up that there is more light in you than the people that are not ill. And right now, you can take back your energy, but you got to start putting that love back inside. Hence, people have cured themselves just by going on a particular diet. So entities, they're there. A lot of them are there to help. A lot of the entities that are not there to help aren't even yours. They're from baggage, and they get passed down from generation to generation. If your great 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 granddad had done some bullshit, negative energy is formed. It's gonna be on the shoulder for everyone passing that genetic line. Then it comes to you. Now, I always say that if you have these kind of entities, plant medicine will most definitely give you the most safest avenue for negotiation. It's a very good negotiating platform because there you have the plant spirits, you have other entities that fully have your backing, that have shown you exactly what you are. And the other entity on the other side, you can say, well, mate, either you're going to get passed down or we help you end your cycle. Let's end your cycle. So what do you think I should do? If the entity does not communicate to you any of its wills that it would like to do, go help someone. Anytime you start helping someone, those entities will feed off that love. But the more you fill them up with love and they leave, you get brownie points. You think money is important? No. You want what I would call it the cosmic brownie points. Earn so much of brownie points because you can use them far beyond than buying a TV and buying an iPhone. You can use them for other things in other different dimensions. So, if there are things or entities that you have, let them really be that avenue for you to actually be financially gain in the other side.
Yeah, your spiritual tokens.
Yeah, spiritual.
Cash in. It's interesting. I had a very, very powerful experience not that long ago, only a few months ago, where I'd used DMT, and one of the frequent themes for me a lot of the time is looking at past lives. And since doing the ayahuasca, this seems to be a constant recurrence. I dream them. I sort of get flashbacks during the day.
Yeah.
Visions. I never thought I'd ever say I'd have visions. That's a strange concept to get my head around. And I'd taken the DMT, and I found myself in this sort of very dark, sort of negative space where to my left was a line of people, and I think I told you this the other day. This line of people, women and children, and it was dark. It was, it had a sort of green hue to it, and it was very cold, and there was a lot of fear, and there's a lot of negativity to the whole thing. And at that point, I thought to myself, I'm not really in the mood for this sort of negative experience right now. And the thought popped through my head of having another sort of puff of the DMT to sort of maybe shift this out of the way.
Sure.
And I knew in my conscious brain that if I did this was going to be a bad idea, but my ego was just like, well, just do it anyway. And the experience I had, the scene shut down, and this entity, this energy came at me so fast and was just sending so much vibration at me. It felt like I was being ripped apart on a molecular level. And the resounding feature, the message which he, I sort of say, I'm not sure, was just like, look, if you're here and I'm showing you something, you are going to you. That's the purpose. There's no fast forwarding, and it gave me such a shock. I didn't do any for quite a number of weeks. And like I sort of said to you, the first time I did it again, guess where I went? I went straight back to that scene, and
Yeah.
it played this brutal scene out of literally being up against the wall, and I'm looking over my shoulder, and all you can see is these people's heads just exploding, and you turn another sort of 45 degrees, and you just see a line of men with machine guns, and we're all being executed, and then it just stops. It just left. As soon as I'd experienced that scene, then it went off into something much more positive, much more stimulating. And, those are the people out there who've never tried sort of ayahuasca or DMT will obviously really struggle to understand that concept. But I thought I thought it was fascinating how it's just like, no, you need to watch this. You need to look at this.
Absolutely.
I'm not conscious of what the learning was right now. I couldn't say that, but it was a profound experience, and it was the first time an entity had ever really sort of, I felt like, it given me a bollocking.
Yeah.
Which is like, no, mate, no. You are not in control here. There is no skipping this. If we're showing you this, there's a very good reason for it. And I think for me, it just reevaluated, just saying, look, these are very, very powerful medicines, and you have to respect them.
Oh yeah.
And you have to have the right to go with the right intentions. And
Absolutely. It's never easy. That's the thing. But for humans, we need to have that certain struggle to really appreciate something. Like, and I feel even the system, the algorithm that we're in right now, I think it's done us good, because when it comes down to something like when people do ayahuasca, a lot of times you will meet a two-headed or two-bodied serpent-like entity. And it's shown on many different artworks as well, which is representation of the ayahuasca vine. And the ayahuasca vine is a double helix shape that looks like a DNA strand, which is tightly wound together.
yeah,
So then, for me, it was I asked the shaman that I was working with, Don Gilberto, who was just teaching me how to cook the medicine and how to cultivate. He then picked up this viper from the ground, and he puts it near my face, and he's like, "Are you scared?" I couldn't even react to that. I just fell backwards in utter shock. And he goes, "See, this is universal programming. You are not scared of the snake, but your fear actually represents respect. So you have automatically respected the snake because there's fear there. Because understand that fear has many aspects to it. It will only take you further." And he then talked about love and the fear in love. Yeah, it's just the simple fact that we mostly have certain reactions to serpents, and yet serpents are so ingrained in many mythologies and many religious realms. For example, it astounds me, like in Hindu mythology, if I can speak about that quickly, like Lord Shiva, he has 7 serpents wrapped around his body. So each one is to tighten his ego chakras to this plane. He has no throat because he has a dark throat, but he also consumes a lot of cannabis, and he has water coming out the hair. Now switch to Peru, where there's a deity called Chakma, which is a water-based deity. It is both masculine and feminine, depending on the moon and the sun. It has 7 serpents wrapped around its body, it has water streaming from its hair, and it has a prominent third eye. These, for me, like these connections that you start seeing with when we look at gods or conceptual deities or metaphorical deities, for example, the fact that so many ancient cultures shared the same structured understanding of a deity through which medicine was a prominent part of the lineage of that culture, should only prove to us as a species that they had some stuff right and some stuff wrong. We can get that some stuff right and bring it forward. We're doing some wrong now, and it's our actions, right? At the end, if we allow plants to be more integral a part of our lives, it just benefits everyone. Not even you, but it benefits your neighbor because you're feeling good. Your vibration has changed. You go out, you by being or accepting that you are. I mean, if I'll put it really blatantly, I mean, I think most religious books say, right, God made man in his own image. Well, that basically solves your problem, right? You are God. You are the complete design of God. That means you can do all the good stuff, or you choose not to do the good stuff. There's no bad. You can either be good or not to be good. Now you decide what's beneficial for your emotions. Does your ego need to have that power? Maybe not. Would it would it want a bit more love in its life? Maybe it would.
Yeah, I guess it's about becoming just more conscious of
Yeah.
your ego, what
Yeah.
motivates you, what drives
Yeah.
you, your
Or
behavioral
when
patterns.
someone goes, "Oh, someone's being egotistic," I'm like, "Well, yes, they're a human being and they do have an ego. So it's okay. You have an ego. You're gonna look different. You're gonna design yourself differently. You're gonna like different stuff. That's cool. Let your ego shine, but let your heart shine as well.
Mm,
Let your mind shine as well. Don't allow one to have a prominent power over the other. There needs to be a bracket in all three, and all three have medicines available.
yeah.
So if you can't understand it, don't experience it. Experience your mind. Experience your heart. Experience your ego. You have the mushrooms. You have alcohol for your ego to a certain point. You have ayahuasca for your ego as well. For your heart, you have cannabis for your heart. You have mushrooms for your heart. You have ayahuasca for your heart. Amazing.
Mm,
Then you have your mind. You have ayahuasca for your mind. You have cannabis for your mind. You have all these plants that are literally there for, me, myself, and I. For all those three voices in your head, you have a plant for each one of them. Don't deny yourself that by putting. If you don't, if it's not something about selling it to someone, but it's about allowing people to feel open enough socially to take their curiosity forward. Right now, there's still so much baggage about cannabis that has been cleaned up over the years about the misconceptions. All of these have misconceptions. We type in ayahuasca right now, you're going to get probably the few worst articles I've read about plant medicine. So it's with everything, extensive research should be there. But my only logical thing with people, when people say why, I'm like, well, I'm human, and I know logically deep down, we don't listen to each other. We can give good advice, but we're not very good at taking someone's advice.
yeah, no, I agree with you on that.
So don't take my advice. Take the plant's advice. It's far more intelligent.
Mm. And very, very quickly, because I think we're going to have to wrap up because we've been
Sure.
going over 2.5 hours now.
Oh, wow. Okay.
But quickly, I just want to. You were talking about ego,
Yeah.
and I wanted to quickly sort of touch on the idea of when we use these plants, ego death. It's something that a lot of people talk about, and
Yeah.
I know online. It's a classic sort of thing which a lot of people discuss. Have you experienced ego death? What is ego death? I'm still not sure I totally understand ego death or the idea behind it. I have noticed in myself, though, since utilizing these plants, that I'm not so reactionary. I'm willing to let things go. I don't feel I always have to be right. I'm very happy. I'm far happier to be proven wrrong,
Yeah.
and then I obviously learn. So in your mind's eye, first of all, have you experienced ego death? What is it? Because it's something that is obviously talked about a lot in the sort of the sense of
Yeah,
using ayahuasca
yeah,
and mushrooms, and obviously more and more people seem to be conscious of ego and how it could potentially be a negative for you, but it's obviously there for a reason.
yeah. Well, when it comes down to ego death, I would say that from what I would use that word ego and the conceptual word of death, uh, you will go through an ego death experience with ayahuasca, with San Pedro, with cannabis as well, because with everything, with plants, the only way they can operate is when you allow them to operate. And who's going to allow them to operate? Your ego. But to kill the ego or have an ego death experience, like with ayahuasca in particular, it's scary because you feel. I mean, from my experience, I felt that I was gonna like leave my body for real, not just thinking that I want to come and see what happens. I want to come and leave my body because I wasn't enjoying my life state. It was the ego that got that freedom to not have to defend or to protect me at that moment. I would say calling it ego death experience. I'll say it's an ego retirement experience, or giving the ego some time off for that experience, because it said, okay, you can let go now. That's it, really. With ayahuasca, it's about letting go. And who is letting go? Is that letting go the mind? Is the heart letting go? Or is the ego not letting go? I remember my first ceremony where I nothing happened to me.
Oh, really? Literally
Nothing
nothing at
happened
all?
because I was sitting there. I'm like, all right, let's go. Within like 2-3 hours, someone's crying, someone's puking all over themselves, someone's going through an orgasmic experience over there. I can see someone crying next to me, and I'm just looking around thinking, hold on, I paid for that. Why is it not happening to me? Like, what's the deal?
I've been
And I went to the
missold.
shaman. I'm like, dude, like, what the f, man? It's nothing's happening. I want to go through that. And he starts laughing. He goes, oh, don't worry, it will come in time. So when I sat down, I got really angry at myself, and I started like, when you shout, but you don't allow the sounds to come out, but you open your mouth and you're just like yelling energy out.
Yeah.
I was just so frustrated at that moment, so pissed off. I can't. Like you're such a failure that you can't even have an experience like this. And that was the first day. So the second day going in, I was like, screw everything. I just want to leave. I just want to leave. Forget, forget everything. And that's where the ego starts speaking to you. The thing is, it's always on your side. So I would say ego death will not be something that one would experience. It's your ego letting go or giving way to you to experience more. You know, ego death is, I think it's what they say when you purge with ayahuasca. They're saying, who is purging? Are you purging, or is your ego purging? Because it's coming out from there. It's releasing everything. Because actually, your ego has been defending you for so long. It's been trying to protect yourself for so long. It has to let go of some of the stuff. So if anything, it's ego cleansing, not ego. I call it maybe ego cleansing experience. Yeah, yeah.
I think I think that's I agree with you. I think it's a nicer way because, like you sort of acknowledged, the ego is there to protect you, to help you. That's all it's
It's
interested in,
your only
really.
friend you have, and maybe it can be your only friend or your worst enemy. Depends on how you play it. Because people say, actually, I was saying that even your mind, it can It can be your best friend or your worst enemy.
Well, like we were discussing earlier, people having, sort of negative conversations with themselves,
Yeah.
beating themselves up mentally.
Yeah.
We all do it.
Yeah. And you want to help, but at the same time, I realize that I get why we need plants, because at some levels there's a way higher powers than we can even imagine that's underworks. So, I mean, you've never had to develop a tree to make air for yourself. It's all been made for us. So don't overcomplicate situations. If there's issues in the mind, there are plants available in nature that can help, for sure.
Well, let's hope moving forward that our governments and the people in control of us at the moment actually start to recognise and allow us to do that and to experiment with these plants, because as we've sort of acknowledged throughout this podcast, there are everybody suffers, and there seems to be much more suffering. And it's for me, I just think it's a real tragedy that we're not openly exploring these wonderful plants, which have the the potential to fundamentally change our lives massively.
Absolutely.
So, well, I think on that note, I think let's wrap it up, because we've been going for
Well, okay.
2 hours and 45 minutes. And but listen, it's been an absolute pleasure, Tida.
Thank you for having me.
We'll continue having conversations.
Of course.
Because I think we've probably only just about scratched the surface in over 2.5 hours today. But thank you, my friend. I really appreciate it. It's been an absolute pleasure having you on. And as I said, this won't be this is the first podcast we'll do together, I'm sure.
Of course.
So thank you very much, everyone, for listening. I hope you've enjoyed it, and we'll be back next week.